Okay, so it's 6:01. I'm calling to order the meeting of the Southampton Open Space Committee, and we are recording. And let's see here. I'm pretty sure, Diana, you're prepared to take minutes tonight. Is
Yes,
that
I
right?
am. Let's just hope that this computer saves them. Bill said it saves automatically. Don't ask me.
Okay. All right. Well, that's hopeful.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a quorum because we have 5 people present, plus we have a guest that I see. So we have present Janet Brown, Charlie McDonald, Paula Mack, Diane Fetterman, and I'm Cindy Palmer. And we think there's some more people coming, hopefully. So the first thing to do, I would like, as I said, because periodically we should do that, does everybody see sharing the screen? And wait a minute, I didn't share the screen yet. Hold on. Share screen. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to pull up our charge because, I want to make sure anybody listening and all of us remember what we're here for. This was select board approved last July. And the mission of our committee is to ensure the protection of the town's farmlands, woodlands, wetlands, scenic views, and other open spaces vital in sustaining the town's historic, agricultural, and rural character, and in maintaining the quality of air, water, and wildlife habitat for the health and well-being of all residents. And we're doing that by advising the select board on open space issues, aligning actions with the town's master plan and open space and recreation plan, collaborating with other town boards and committees to achieve the mission, and acquiring funding through federal, state, local, and private sources to achieve the mission. Let's see here, was there anything else on that? Just want to go down a little. Oops, wait a minute. Here we go. We're going to catalog priority lands for conservation and open space acquisition and develop long-term and regular contact with significant landowners, assume the responsibility for the town's open space committee, open space and recreation plan, which is generally approved every 7 years. But of course now it's nearly approved now. I think it's finalized and listed on the state website as that we do have an open space and recreation plan. So that's important for people to know that. I'm going to stop sharing that, and I'm going to ask if there's any public comments at this point. I see one member of the public. Hi, April. April was just able to join. That's great.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hey.
Chris, did you have any particular comments at this point? You're the one member of the public that's present.
Hey there. Just one tiny thing on the open space plan. I did do a double check as we were looking at possible grants from the grant committee, and on the state website it does show that we have an approved plan. However, in our last grant meeting yesterday, I brought it up again and just wanted to verify with Ed, and apparently there's still one chart that has to be updated. Something about the recreation potential maybe of the various properties. So he said he was going to reach out to Marla, but that's the only thing that's waiting, and it shouldn't be a terribly complicated exercise. It's, what condition are they in and how appropriate are they for what kinds of recreation, I think is what it sounded like. So he said he was going to reach out to Marla. So I will say that it's 98% there. It's just that one form that has to be added to it from what I understand. So
thank you for that. But we are still listed on the state website as having an approved plan.
We are. But I think we want to get this done no matter what. This is apparently been hanging out there.
Yeah.
I thought it had been done.
It's always one little thing, but thanks on that for letting us know, Chris.
How did you find out, Chris, that it wasn't complete?
I asked Ed during our grant meeting yesterday because we were looking at the park grant for parks, and the park grant requires an approved plan.
Right.
So I just asked just to have him verify it or just say that. And then he said something that I wasn't expecting. So in terms of one form. So he said he would reach out to Marla.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he will. I know he has a lot going on, always. Do we want to know who's gonna, I don't know, maybe I'll ask Marla when she hears from him on that in terms of follow-up. Okay, but I don't believe there's any responsibility on this committee at this point. It sounds like Ed and Marla will work it out.
Yeah, no, I think it was more just because the Concom properties, she's the most familiar with their various states, perhaps. I don't know. He wasn't looking to do a committee meeting or anything. He was just going to reach out to her and get the answer. So that was just yesterday. So she doesn't know anything about this unless he talked to her today, which I would be surprised. So
Okay.
give it a couple of days.
Okay. Oh, Reni's here too. Hi, Reni. I just see where you arrived.
Hi, how are you, everybody?
Thank you. Welcome. Welcome. So I know that the select board has been working like whatever, 40 hours a week from what I understand to deal with everything. And so I thank Rini and Chris for being present tonight. And frankly, I thank all of you because everybody makes contributions to our town. I think at this point, I'm going to share the screen and put up the minutes of the April 15th meeting, which I don't believe I sent out in advance in draft form for review. So can everybody see that? And I will scroll up in a moment in terms of reviewing these minutes.
I can see it okay.
I can too.
Me too.
Okay, so I'm going to give you another 15 seconds to read down, and then I'll push it up a bit. So when people have a chance, if you can just like put a thumb up or something so I know you've had a chance to read it or. Okay, great.
Okay, Janet.
Okay. So,
The only thing at the end there, this is the Western Mass Certified Gardeners Association. There's a word certified in their official title.
okay, thanks. So Janet, can you insert that? You see where Charlie discussed a project,
I
the
see.
Western Mass Certified Gardeners Association Curling conducts. Okay, thanks. Is there any other comments about corrections or anything that you want to comment on?
It says the April 25th meeting minutes were not approved or marked or something.
Yeah, those were the executive session minutes.
Oh, okay.
It's not that they weren't approved, they just weren't even discussed, right?
Not presented.
They were
Not
not presented.
Yeah.
Maybe we should say that we're not presented. And maybe we should say executive session, Janet. Minutes of the March 25th executive session meeting were not presented.
Okay.
Okay. And any other comments? All right, with those two corrections, do I hear a motion to accept?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Yes, I'll second them.
All right, I've here to accept and seconded Rini and Charlie. Any further discussion? All right, by roll call, April,
West eye.
Paula,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Rini,
Aye.
let's see here, Diana,
Aye.
Who have I missed?
Me.
Oh,
Aye.
Charlie, I'm sorry. Charlie, do you accept?
Yes, yes.
And Cindy accepts. So they're accepted unanimously with the 2 changes. Okay, thank you very much. Now, let's see here. We're going to go quickly to committee reports. So who would like to begin? Anybody volunteering to begin?
Committee.
I'll go ahead and start.
Thanks, Rini.
So the article, the budget was finalized and voted on, and the money for open space is in the override section because it's a new expense. What else? The articles were approved to send out to the on the warrant, and of note is the zone change for the parcel next to across from the cemetery. Also, as a number of other articles that would concern open space. One of them is a debt exclusion for purchase of the rail bed, $100,000. I mean, Chris could speak to this more than me. $100,000 received. So if people don't want to sacrifice that amount, they can vote to have a debt exclusion for the additional funding for that. Chris, what else is open space related? That in terms of the budget or the articles?
Yeah, just that debt exclusion on the Greenway is $270,000, I believe it was. There'll be the amendment to the wetlands bylaw, just to put in the fine of the $300 per day per offense.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just amending that one section. That's all that comes to mind at the moment.
Can somebody just explain to me the $100,000 grant for the Greenway and then the debt exclusion for 270? How does that work mathematically?
Yep.
Chris is the one that was actually writing it.
Yeah, thanks. And Diana.
Diana.
So we got the $100,000 grant through the small town housing choice small town capital grant, and basically that is for acquisition of the rail bed, the right of way of the rail bed. That is only a partial down payment on that. The total amount in the letter of intent with the railroad of about 3 years ago, I'm thinking it's $350 thereabouts, and so that was one portion of it, and then this is the second iteration of it to hopefully complete the total that we could actually move forward with. In all just honesty here, we have also applied for a Mass Trails grant, which we will not know anything about until July. So from a timing point of view, and not wanting to count on anything from Mass Trails, the Greenway Committee is the one that wanted to put this debt exclusion on the warrant. So they're the ones that have done that and brought it to Capital for approval. So should we not get the approval at town meeting, we still have the Mass Trails as a backup. Should we get it at town meeting, the wording is such that it's for acquisition and or design, so that we're not locked into a little box, because the Mass Trails grant is definitely only for design. So should we happen to get both, we would be great, actually.
Do we know for sure if that's enough money? That you said 3 years ago it was 350 is.
Well, yeah, no, yes, it would be if we got both. I mean, 100 and the 270, so that's 370 right there. So we've got to use some of that money. The 100,000 serves as part of the quote unquote contribution or match toward the full grant for some of these programs.
And the article specifically says purchase and design. So if there's any additional money and if it's approved, it can go towards the design as well as the purchase. And of course, the CPC one that on the Barnes Aquifer publication is also on the warrant, of course.
Okay.
Yep.
And I just want to make you aware of one other thing. I got an email about from Brittany from Conservation, basically talking about spraying, mosquito spraying, and that if we wanted to be an opt-out community, we would have to come up with an alternative plan by the end of May. So this all happened like yesterday, and so I quickly wrote to the Board of Health because they have to play a role in endorsing it and whatever. They met yesterday, and they came back not endorsing it. I talked to my sister, who's an entomologist, who put me in touch with the mosquito person for the Pioneer Valley District. Anyway, to come up with an alternative plan by the deadline, which is May 30th, would be somewhat problematic. And so that's primarily the reason why they did not vote in favor of it.
You mean the health department did not vote in favor?
Right. It says, thank you for your voicemail. We researched and discussed the opt-out option for mosquito spraying, and there has not been spraying in our geographic area according to the MDR map. Jerry was informed that if there was an emergency, they will end up spraying. So I got a report a while ago about EEE, and of course we do have a large number of horses in town, so it is a concern. But the window, I mean, literally, I just found out about this, did as much research I could. I don't know if anybody in the committee knows, basically about this, but what Brittany said initially is that our town would have to come up with a plan such as reducing standing water, and a number of things would have to be an alternative plan. And there's not that much time to do that right now. And there's questions about whether or not we would want to do that.
There was at a town meeting a year or two ago, a big discussion about this. I don't know if anybody else remembers that, but about mosquito control and funding it, and what maybe I forget what it was all about, but I know we discussed it.
Yeah.
It was one of the indoor meetings, so it wasn't last year, but
yeah.
Well, we are part of a mosquito control program, right?
Right.
That's basically
it's
monitoring where.
Yes.
Right.
It's not control, it's surveillance.
Right. So they, at different points during the summer and early fall, they select a few points in town and take samples and then test whatever mosquito they find to figure out what kind it is and what it might be carrying possibly. Yeah. So that's all we're really involved in right now.
Right.
And we pay for that?
We do.
$5,000 a year out of the budget.
I think that's what it was about. Yeah, at town meeting, if it was
well,
worth it.
What happened was last year, because there were no funds and COVID and everything was cut 4%, Matt Rowland's family made a donation of $5,000 towards it. So this year it is covered in the operating budget under the Board of Health. And it's, we'd be in big trouble if there was a major outbreak. And so I think the surveillance is good. We get reports, or the Board of Health does, on how many tested positive in which towns, which counties. And if there was a major problem, we would be very disadvantaged if we weren't part of this district. Yeah. So we're looking, like Nick, my sister had recommended that maybe we start 6 months, before a deadline, and really work with the conservation, maybe this committee or whoever would be likely involved, and come up with an alternative plan. She said that her parents lived in Beckett, and they have been dealing with the contamination. This is Brittany here. She said, she's very much obviously in favor of it. And she said that in her parents' community, they had a contamination because of the aerial spraying. So it's definitely something that we should be looking into. It's just that, according to Jerry, we're not having regular spraying, and if there was an emergency, we wouldn't have a choice about whether they're going to spray or not. So anyway, I just wanted you to be aware that that was a lot of things going on yesterday about that.
You must mean Brittany Gudemuth. That's your next Taylor. Okay. Yeah. All right. All right. So it sounds to me like minimally there should be some education. So if you had a big puddle, not a puddle, but like, pails or something in your backyard that you're allowing standing water, that would be something you dump out. And it's the encephalitis issue continues. We know that, so we can't ignore that. So.
Well, my sister gave me the email, and I already got an email from one of her graduate students, and she's in charge of the mosquito control district in the eastern part of the state. So she sent me an email with tons of links and tons of stuff. So I'm going to read through it all and maybe bring it up again. And maybe it would be good to put some, even if we don't do anything, education about reducing with this mosquito population would be, I think, very helpful.
Okay. Thanks, Rini. Do you remember how much is in the override for Open Space Committee?
It's only $500, I think, right?
I think 500. Okay.
Yeah, right.
All
The
right.
override, I'm sorry to say, I don't know if you've been following the whole budget process. It's been quite painful, so I hope you're not. But anyway, the bottom line is we did increase the override amount last night to accommodate raising some additional wages in town. We prioritized, wages because they were under benchmark and also because there were no raises at all last year. So COLA raises for employees and then additional 2% for people that were very underpaid. Some technology in the operating budget. And unfortunately, the school came in on the later side with a pretty huge amount of an increase. So that kind of threw us a little bit. And so the override is about $718,000.
Is it itemized?
There's all kinds of things. It's certification for the library. Matt Rowland is, putting together a handout that goes over everything that's would be an advantage and everything that would be lost if it doesn't pass. So it's, pain. The whole thing's painful, if you ask me. The whole thing has been painful. What do you want to say about that, Chris? You've been having fun, right?
Yeah, right. Fun is not the operative word, I don't think.
No, it's been hard.
Thanks.
I
Thanks, Brittany.
want to thank you both for all of the time and effort, because that is excruciatingly painful to watch. Never
I know.
mind
Yeah.
be in the middle of. So
Yeah.
The one meeting went from 6 o'clock to quarter of midnight. But last night, some of those additional positions were added to the override budget, April.
I was on the meeting, so thank you.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Rini. That's excellent. Let's move to, April. Do you want to talk about anything from assessors?
We had a meeting on Tuesday, and I learned that the Edwards Road parcels, the 59.9 and the 85-acre parcels, did sell on, I was just looking up the information, on May 4th. They were combined for a total of $185,000 for the two lots. And they sold to a homeowner on Edwards Road in Westham. So the Chapter 61 designation is on record, and the properties still have tax liens. So we're waiting to hear from the closing attorney as to any deviation from or change in use.
Okay. So let's see here. I know exactly where it comes in from Westhampton. And on one side of the road is one landowner, and on the other side of the road is the one, I believe, that you're talking about that sold, that we've been waiting to hear was going to sell.
Yeah.
And I was actually in the assessor's office yesterday briefly and spoke to Martha. So the question is, what are they going to do with it? Because the chapter status, did you just tell us when it's going to expire on that? Is the end of this year?
Yeah, it doesn't really say. The Chapter 61 tax lien, the one that I could find quickly in the Registry of Deeds, was recorded in 2001. And that's a long time ago now. And that began July 1st, 2002, the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2002. So I'm not exactly sure how you read that, but there must be another lien that got recorded or it got extended. I don't know how that works.
Okay.
How much acreage total?
Did you?
Sorry?
How much, what was the total acreage?
Oh, 89 point some, I'm sorry, 85 point something and 59.9 acres. Two parcels are now on one deed.
So I've been speaking with the now former owner
Yeah.
via email for several months now. Her opinion is that the new owners are very conservation minded. She wouldn't tell me the name but now we know it's a Westhampton resident. And we don't know what their thoughts are. I wonder if it's because I know who the people are that own right at the very end, and it's a family, people that are like my age, and then their son has built up the hill, and it's both on the Westhampton side. So
Yeah.
I wonder what they have in mind to do with it, and that's a lot of money.
But I think you have the right family. I can disclose the name if you want, because it's public record.
Sure, if it's public record, yeah.
Okay, so it's Alan, Tracy, and Brent Dizilo, Dzialo.
Yep.
Okay,
I met Mrs. Dizilo. I don't know. She
Okay.
must be Tracy.
they live at 170 Edwards Road.
Mhm.
Alan and Tracy do,
Okay.
in Westhampton.
Yep.
Okay,
All right. Thank you, April. And I think at this point, I'm just going to bring up something else, which it does fall under assessors. And that is that the Conservation Commission received an email from another landowner in town who has 12 acres. It's right near a town property. It's right near that which we are still calling Durrell's Path. And Diana and I met with this person last night. Where did I write down map?
I saw your email,
Okay, so
so I was trying to look that one up too.
it's map 11, parcel 4, I believe.
Okay,
And this has been in the family for several years. And this man, who is a town resident, lifelong town resident, had inherited it from his brother. And he is interested in selling it. Diane and I were clear that, and we don't know, if the town would be buying it right now. Plus, there's a lot of hoops to jump through between getting an appraisal, et cetera. We said the town would not be able to pay greater than the appraised value. However, he raised the question with us about access. And he is of the opinion that there was some sort of legal action to allow access to this property via the old Edwards Road, which I don't know how that works. And so I had emailed April and Martha Leamy and copied Marla and Diana, and I'm reporting about it tonight to find out what we know about that. If there's any kind of access that was ever granted through any sort of legal action, et cetera, and what that access means. And now that we're hearing that this other property is sold, which is on the old Edwards Road. Now, the old Edwards Road goes right down into what is privately held property. It's one subdivision has already been developed off Crooked Ledge Road. That's Quigley Estates. So I'm not sure that Edwards Road will ever open up for Southampton, and we know in our subdivision bylaws that a road that is considered a public road in Southampton has to be accessible by another Southampton road for safety purpose, for public safety like police, fire, ambulance, etc. So consequently, I'm confused about why this person who owns this other property, map 11, parcel 4, believes that there's access and what that means. So I don't know if maybe Janine, because she's working in the office now, right? If Janine, who has had access to a lot of things in the past, or Martha, or anybody can find that, it'd be interesting to know. So that's kind of a little tiny bit of new business, really, that we will be following up on going forward and see what happens. Let's get through this town meeting before we start talking about, any kind of town purchase. All right.
I think we should mention that it abuts town-owned conservation land. I don't think you said that, so.
Thought I said Durrell's Path. Okay, but you're right.
Yeah, that's why we're really interested. And there's a view, according to the landowner.
And Diana and I and anyone else who wants to, we can join. He's willing to walk up there with us, and I'd like to see what he means by the view. So just email me if you want me to try to schedule anything around, your availability, et cetera. And I think we'd have to go up through our right of way, which is over the Lower property, to go up and then go through town land to get to it. That's how I assume we would need to go to see this view. Okay. All right. Moving on. Let's see here. Conservation Commission.
Oh, that's me. I didn't go to the latest one, which was Monday, which I believe was about taking down some trees. There's been a landowner who abuts the Manhan Meadows, if it's the same one, who's really worried in all those high winds we had about trees falling on him. And I think the agreement was to take them down, but to be reimbursed by the landowner, I think. Not sure. And before that, there was a very long meeting, and I stayed for an hour and a half, and it was about wetlands delineation on a new subdivision off Crooked Ledge Road. And I'm not sure where that all ended up. I think it's still ongoing. And finally, about the Manhan Meadows, it's just been a nightmare. It was over a month now that the one bid was opened. We've been waiting for Ed to get references, to check references, and I haven't heard anything despite asking him. And I just don't know. It really needs to go out to bid again, but if that's going to happen, I don't know. I feel like we are in danger of losing that grant. But meanwhile, thanks to Ted Palmer, we are taking the benches in on Saturday. A lot of the people who said they would help now are not helping. So it's me and Ted and my husband and Randall Kemp. And I don't know if anyone else will show up, but I think
Rory's coming too, my son. He's going to help.
Ted said he might. I'm not
told me he would. He did.
Yeah, okay. That would be nice. We'll put a plaque on the bench to the Palmers.
No way. But if anybody knows of anyone, and it's a physical job, so, it has to be somebody that's comfortable working physically. If you know of anyone who might be able to help, should they get in touch with you, Diana?
Sure. But if Rory comes, I think we might have 5 or 6 people. So we have me, Bill.
And I'm coming.
Oh, you're coming too? We might have enough,
Okay.
And Anna's supposed to come.
Okay. All right. Well,
What time are you planning on doing this? I could help, but I don't know what time. I have to go to a funeral.
9 a.m. we're meeting on Saturday.
That's when the funeral is, so I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I can't.
Thank you. Anyway, yeah, we'll make it. I'll be glad when they're done. I'll send pictures when the benches are in place. I mean, they're not probably even going to be in their permanent places. It doesn't matter because the place hasn't been renovated yet. So.
Are you doing that at the highway department, or you're taking the parts down to the sanctuary and putting them together?
We're taking them. That's why they were made the way they are, so that we can carry them in pieces. Each bench is 4 pieces. Otherwise, they'd be way too heavy.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So Janet, do you want to say anything about CPC?
Well, there's not a whole lot to say. We didn't meet on April the 7th. Hopefully we didn't meet on May the 5th, and hopefully we're going to meet in the first Wednesday of June. But Virginia did give us a request that everybody come up with something to do for Celebrate Southampton, and that was our charge in the April meeting. And then since we didn't meet in May, nobody was able to report. So I think we're looking forward to meeting June the 2nd, and then maybe I'll have something better to say.
Okay, thank you. Paula, do you want to report anything on the Parks Commission?
Yes, actually, we had a fairly long meeting, but I think the only part of it that had to do with the open space was discussion about a grant. Diana actually came to the meeting with a young woman named Caitlin Rooks, and they're the ad hoc grant committee, and they were talking about the idea of getting a grant to help pay for new playground equipment. And while we were discussing that, they were talking about land grants, and one of our members brought up the piece of land that's abuts the park that goes out to East Street. But after a little bit of discussion, we felt we wouldn't have the time to put together grants for both the playground equipment and the land. So we're going to stick with the playground equipment for now. But I think that was the only thing, unless Diana has something to add to that. That's about the only thing that would have to do with open space.
Well, since then, do you want to talk, Chris, what we learned about?
Yeah, go ahead.
We went, let's see, Chris and Caitlin and I sat in on a meeting with the grants chief, the administrator, a Zoom meeting, and told her what we were thinking of. And she was pretty clear that before any of that could happen with the playground equipment, the park needs to be accessible. That's our number one job. So I think we were planning to go back to the Parks Commission, and she was really supportive of the idea of a splash park, because I guess they consider that part of climate cooling, resiliency. And so I think we were thinking that before we could go for the playground equipment, we would need some kind of path around the park that would be accessible. And maybe that path could go to the splash pad park. But yeah, it seems like it's all up in the air now.
Where's the park intended to be located? Is it the Conant?
Yes,
this is the Conant Park, where the old playground is with all that old equipment. That would all have to come out, and new equipment will go in there.
Okay.
Yeah, but the idea was to have maybe a walking path, because the ground is pretty uneven, and if there were anybody that has difficulty walking or in a wheelchair, it really is not accessible. So the idea would be to make some sort of a path, not necessarily paved, but some sort of a solid bed path around, a loop around the park that people could use just to exercise, make it more accessible no matter what age. And then she talked about possibility, as they're talking about playground equipment, of including exercise stations, which every so often you could have an exercise station for adults that could do some strengthening exercise as they're in the middle of their walk or while they're supervising the kids or whatever. So she was interested, but I think she really felt that we really should focus on making the park accessible first before we worried about the playground equipment. And there are other grants also that could be used for the playground equipment.
Will there be a grant application in order to create this accessible path and, exercise stations?
It's a park grant, PARC, and it is due July 14th.
Wow.
Same as the land grant.
So where does it stand right now, do you think, Chris?
It's gonna, I think Sonia and Dan were gonna take it back to the Parks Commission. And I don't know, with their infrequent meetings, I'm not sure how much is gonna move forward. As you know, we've been meeting weekly on the grant committee to try to move things for people, but.
So Paula, when do you know when the next meeting is of Parks?
June 16th.
Yeah, that I think
that's going to be tight. There's a lot of stuff that's got to get done. So I don't know. Maybe they could call a special meeting or something. But it's in Dan and Sonia's hands at the moment. So
I don't see where there would be any problem with getting everyone to agree to do a walking path. The whole idea, I think that's a terrific idea.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think who's the chair now? Is it still
Mark Reed?
Okay. Is he resigning? Did I hear that? Effective with the election, or is he still going to be on the Parks Commission? Do you know?
I had not heard that he's resigning.
I shouldn't say that because I did not know where I got that hit in my head, so strike that. But could you consider asking him if he wants to hold a special meeting?
Sure.
Yeah,
I'd be happy to.
okay, just to talk about that, the idea of the grant for the walking path. That, I believe, is part of what's in our open space and recreation plan is more accessibility. And boy, in terms of the fact that we have that big space there, it needs work, of course, but also our Council of Aging is just, grant you got to cross Route 10, but there is a crosswalk. We know how critical that is. That's important. Okay.
Well, and there are lots of people, well, maybe not lots, but there are people that walk down College Highway and cross over at Clark Chapman and walk down Clark Street and up East Street. So to have a park, a path at the park itself, I think would be an added feature for them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything else from Paula or questions for Paula? Okay. So I guess it's me at this point. Planning board, the thing that was brought up by Rainey regarding being on the warrant for the zone change application was discussed at the planning board, and based on a legal opinion from KP Law, because it was a tie vote for the planning board to either approve or support the zone change or not support it, it's considered no vote. That's the decision by KP Law. So there will not be any particular planning board support or non-support of the zone change, as I understand it in the warrant, unless somebody can tell me if it said anything different. I don't think it should. And so what we did talk about is whether we as private citizens wish to speak either for or against it. And we decided that any planning board member, of course, has the right as a private citizen to speak at town meeting one way or the other, depending on their opinions on that. So that's the only thing on that right now. There wasn't anything else particularly related to Open Space Committee at the planning board. And I do want to remind everybody, if you don't already know it, we do have an important town meeting coming. We already heard the importance of what's on the warrant that Rini pointed out. We need to get a lot of people out. I'm assuming, nobody said this, is this going to be an outdoor town meeting again, as far as you know, or is that unclear at this point? Do you know that, anybody?
It will be outdoors. It'll be at Labrie Field on the 12th of June.
Okay. Same as...
Is it 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock? I think it's 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock, I think.
There's a sign in front of Town Hall. Big sign.
Oh, it's already posted? Oh, okay. So great. And as we well know, this is the most basic form of government, town meeting form of government, where people can speak and people can vote. And so spread the word, because that's when we really understand what the town really wants on all these important issues, and they're big ones this year. All right. So moving on, committee reports, we'll go to old business, and I can give you a kind of a brief report on the neighborhood outreach neighborhood outreach program. We have completed 5 of our 6 events. The last one is tomorrow. Every single one of them was, in my opinion, well attended. 3 of them were the ones that we invited the entire town to. The first one being the toads and wood frogs. And that was Brittany Gutermuth, and that was the first one on April 23rd. And it was great because there were, I think, 8 children as well as 20-something adults, and that was at Conan Park. It was a chilly day, but it was really nice. And then we've had 2 hikes, and those were both very successfully attended. One was on Wolf Hill Sanctuary with a forester who has worked with our town. And the other one was that was on May 1st, and May 8th was a botanist, and that was called Clearwater Woodland, and that was also fully attended. And that was a sort of overflow required. And I will say, if anybody ever wants to walk through Clearwater Woodland and doesn't know the path, I've become quite intimate with the path. So I can happily give private tours fact, I was able to do that with Chris and a couple of other people who couldn't, I just asked them would they consider an alternative. And as it turned out, the botanist decided she needed another opportunity to see the path in advance. So we got a free tour as well with the botanist. So she actually went over 3 different times, and that was great. And Friends of Southampton Open Space was the sponsor of that one and was able to make a few remarks. They've, I think, gotten some more membership. And then we've had 2 programs which were invitation only to large parcel landowners. And I have to say, in retrospect, the one decision I probably would have made differently the next time, and that is to not hold those on a Friday, because I think that hindered the attendance somewhat. In addition to there being, many landowners who don't even live around here, we also discovered there are landowners who work and landowners who have other commitments, volunteer commitments, et cetera. Nonetheless, I review who did come and the kind of interaction, which is exactly what we wanted. There was give and take, there were questions, there was sharing, including a couple people that already have conservation restrictions on their land. They came and were, interested in what the speakers had to say, specifically the second one, who was Elizabeth Roblica from Conservation Works. First one was an expert appraiser, and they were both quite excellent. I am going to finalize exactly how you can see all of these on the Easthampton Media YouTube website. I'm wondering if we can put that on the town website, to the links. I'm going to do. Anybody have any idea on that? Who do I just ask Ed if we can just put those on?
Yeah, because he would just give it to our temporary or our contract person who does the updates of the website.
Okay. All right. And then tomorrow, if anyone has the time, I know there's several people that work that are in our meeting tonight, but tomorrow at 1 p.m., Scott Jackson from UMass is going to be there. And I've heard him before, Diana, and I heard him up at the Westhampton Library a couple of years ago. He is excellent, very factual. And did anybody happen to see today's reminder? We got a little press.
Yep.
And Ryan Fair, is that how you say it? Fair? He called me. I don't remember speaking about rainforests, but somehow he said I did, for those famous Southampton rainforests. But nonetheless, we got some press on it, and I think he's going to be there tomorrow. We stayed within budget, and I've started to draft the final report. And Paula, thank you very much for offering to do thank you notes. That was really kind. But actually, I'm just going to do them on the computer and kind of, do the same thank you for everybody and just personalize a little bit. So I think I can manage that. And also, thank you to everybody that made any contribution at all. And believe me, I understand when people can't be there at these things. But we have bakers that have baked cookies. One of them in our midst is Janet, and I baked cookies a few different times. I've gained 3 pounds in the last 3 weeks because of all the cookies I baked. Anybody who hasn't yet signed up for it, who's on this Zoom meeting and wants to and can attend, I really urge you to do that, because this informs us for when we go to town meeting, and that's a critical point. So that's all I have to say about that, unless anybody has any questions on that. Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
I just wanted to let you know that typically for the articles for the warrant, there'll be a spokesperson for different articles, so you might want to make it clear. I would imagine they would turn to the planning board, but if that's not a role that the planning board will take because of the vote, someone's going to speak. Usually they have a spokesperson. So you might want to just make it clear that whoever's, I think, would it be Ed, Chris?
You're talking about the partial
The zoning one, yeah.
Zoning one? I guess it would be. If planning board's not going to do it, I would think so, yeah.
Well, yeah. I don't know if they're not going to take a position, but maybe that would be what they'll say. They won't say for or against.
Yeah, okay. So you think, right. Paul, you think that, yeah.
I don't know, but I'm going to email him, Rini. That's a more important point.
Yeah, I
this
just
would
don't want it to be left to the day of and then just assume that, just so you
Yeah.
know, for all these articles, there is a spokesperson, the relevant department or whatever.
Yeah, and this one is coming on is from the parcel owner himself, right? And that's how it's getting on the warrant, right? I mean, it's coming on. Select board didn't vote on it, and planning board did their thing, right? So it's
Well,
just
we
coming.
voted to approve the articles for the warrant. So I don't
Right.
agree with all the articles, but we voted to put them in front of the voters.
Right, but okay. Yeah, no, we did that, but we didn't have a separate vote on
Right,
after planning board because
Right.
KP Law said we didn't need to, right?
that's right.
That's a really good point, though, because the petitioners and their representative are not, there's a double negative, they are not town residents. So consequently, they would need special permission to speak.
Right.
So there is a planning board meeting next Wednesday night.
Mhm.
I am actually not able to be present for that, but I'm going to email Paul and raise that. But there's still time because then there'll be another planning board meeting before the town meeting. So we should at least discuss how that's going to work.
Yeah, I think it should be discussed so it's not like a surprise and people are waiting. I think there's always a presumption of, well, I mean, if you get up there and said, we didn't take a vote on this, I think I just don't want you to be surprised that they're going to be looking to someone to speak on behalf of the article.
We did take a vote. We just was a
Right.
tie vote, yeah. But I hear your point. So that's really good, a very good reminder. And then, of course, after somebody speaks in favor of whatever the article is or opposes it, then it's open for anyone to speak, stand at the mic and be acknowledged by the moderator, correct? So we can say something for or against. Great. That's really important, Rini. Thanks on that. Okay, let's see here. Pollinator garden. You, Charlie, have, and I had a little information, but you also went to the Water Commission meeting, right?
Yes, yesterday we went to the Water Commission and reviewed the Bonds Aquifer, the final form of the Bonds Aquifer pamphlet. And they're aware that we're going to the town meeting in June and going to mail a brochure, direct mail to the residents of the town. The only modification that was suggested was from Joe Slattery, and he thought that a larger map of the aquifer, if it was at least referenced at the end. If you remember, we have the BayPAC web address, and he suggested, and it was agreed upon that we have another web address that would give this map. There's a very nice map at their website. It's called Superficial Geology of the Bonds and Great Brooks Aquifer. It's very nice. It's on their web page, but having that identified at the end of this brochure, as well as the identity of the BayPAC website was suggested. So I guess we agreed to do that. Just add that line and identify what it is. So anybody who wanted to get a real overview of how big this aquifer is and how many towns it supports, they could get that at that website.
So you're not changing the map as we've seen it before. You're merely adding the link.
No, our objective was very simple: a small map to educate people of what they should do to keep the aquifer water in the town of Southampton in good shape. And this is a more cosmic view of the aquifer in Western Mass.
Okay.
It covers Easthampton, Westhampton, and a whole bunch of Westfield, etc.
Okay.
So that's going to be added.
Just wait one second, Charlie. Wait 1 second. So does anybody feel that we need to move to support that? Because we already approved the previous pamphlet and map, et cetera. Or should we just assume that that's a nice addition to add that link on there, which the cosmic view of the aquifer? I personally think we wouldn't dispute it at all. I think it's great to have on there. Anybody?
Can I just ask a question? I thought BayPAC didn't exist anymore. So do they actually still have a website?
They do.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
And yeah, they do. And Patty Gambarini has put that on the original document that we had for writing of the in this brochure that we're sending out. So it still exists.
Okay, so Southampton just got out of the membership, is that?
It's not active. There's no regular meetings, and she is somewhat disenchanted that that is the case. But it's still on there, and there's some very nice data on that. It's really good. So I can email you, Chris, this map. I have it on my computer here, so you can at least look at it and see if it's it's a very, very nice map.
Yeah, no, great. I just remember during our master plan discussions, I thought we had thought that BayPAC had dissolved, or maybe it was just our membership from Southampton was no longer part of it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't think they meet. So to the extent the organization meets on a regular basis, it's apparently that has dissolved, but they still have a website with a lot of data. They didn't dispose of that. The other thing, in the last meeting we had, there was concern about how we describe getting rid of ice, be it salt and sand. I've asked Patty to come up with an opinion. She's put it on her list. She seems to have to do some research if there's any modification of what we wrote in the pamphlet. So that's something that she's going to get back with me on it. But I can't modify anything in the pamphlet at this point based on that input. So the other thing is that the last thing...
Wait, Charlie, I'm going to ask before you go on to the other thing. Consistent with what Rainey just brought up a moment ago, because the warrant will have that we are going to vote on CPC funding for the publication of this pamphlet. We have to decide who's going to speak either, well, obviously in favor of it. Is that something that you want to prepare?
Yeah, I'll do that. I think I recognize that's my responsibility. I'll do that.
If I can help by, reviewing your remarks or whatever, feel free to utilize our help if you want to prepare your remarks so you're kind of ready for it.
Oh, I think I can handle it. I've been in front of the town meetings on a number of occasions in the last 10 years or so, begging for money as usual. But anyway. Okay,
thanks.
Okay, I'll do that. And the other thing we mentioned, Cindy, I made a mistake actually when I was editing the meeting minutes. I looked on the web, and that charter gardening organization, the official is Western Massachusetts Master Gardener Association. Master Gardener Association. That's what the notes should say. I misspoke.
Okay,
in the first early minutes when we reviewed that, Master Gardener. Okay. And the reason I know a few Master Gardeners, and Cindy knew one also, Margaret Lawson, and that organization has a program, because one of the critical things as far as this garden is concerned is maintenance and cost. And that organization frequently has interns that can work and take care of gardens. But I think Margaret has indicated in a meeting that Cindy and I, a Zoom meeting we had, indicated that because of COVID, that program and their courses have been somewhat diminished over the last year or so. So the outstanding issues for a pollinator garden or a monarch environment garden would be cost and maintenance. But through the discussions, and Margaret has really helped us here, and she was at the meeting yesterday with the water department, because there's some issues about where we're going to put this garden, and also the issue of fertilizer. Typical for land grant, like in SIPTA Farm, you're not allowed to put any fertilizer on. They were quite amenable to, we suggested one place was that acreage on Pomeroy Meadow, And that turns out to be 15 acres. I didn't realize it was that big, but it's 15 acres, but a small garden. From the discussion, from our perspective, I think now it's a relatively small garden, maybe 100 square feet. It should be elevated in order to minimize invasion of weeds and so on. It should have a border. It could be either wood or stone. And that location, we mentioned it to the water department, and they were not overly concerned with the trivial amount of fertilizer we'd probably need for this relatively small garden.
Great.
So that seemed to be something that's amenable. They are going to the land grant documents and see exactly what is stated there, but the discussion seemed to be quite positive as far as that location. Now that's something we have to, this committee has to vote on. Where do you want to put this? And that's one of the suggested sites. And it's suggested because there's some pedestrian traffic, and there's also it's somewhat close to the schools. And the fundamental objective of this garden is education. If you go to the website, any website on the it says pollinator garden signage. If you look on that on a Google search, you'll see all sorts of signs that theoretically for $20, $30 you could put in a garden. And I think at that site, but again, maybe Conan Park might be a more appropriate. That's what we were considering at this point. So that's the water department commissioners were fine with that site, that 15-acre site. And we are at the process, we have a summary document from Margaret about what the characteristics of this garden shall be. And I think by the time we meet again in June, when are we meeting again in June? But we might have a design, a preliminary design with some cost estimates. I'm having my friend at Look Park develop that for us. So we'll have some idea of what this might cost and what it might look like for editing. All this I'm saying here has not been reviewed nor voted upon, so we'll leave it at that. But hopefully next time we'll have a document, a schematic, professionally done. This is what it's going to cost, and then we say, how are we going to get the money to do this? That's going to be an issue, and the timing is probably not this year. It's probably next summer. Something like that. Anyway, that's all I guess I have to say. Is there any questions?
Well, at this point, do you want us to discuss location and where this committee?
I think that would be good if if people have a strong opinion about where this should be, we should review it. The only thing that we saw that parcel out on Pomeroy Meadow, and its size is really much bigger than I anticipated. It seems like, given the pedestrian traffic, and I see quite a lot of pedestrians going back and forth with their dogs and so on Pomeroy Meadow and going to the post office. And it might be useful for an educational point of view to have it there. It'll be focused and I think we could put a bench in there too. I'll have this friend of mine is going to come up with an idea for the bench, a metal bench, not wood bench. But okay, I guess I've talked enough.
So I am hearing when Paula gave her report that Conant Park, in addition to what she didn't mention, which is the pickleball courts, which were already approved, I'm just thinking that park is under some type of transition going for at least the next year or so. So to add a garden to someplace in Conant Park now strikes me as a little premature. Let these other transitions take place, whether it's walking paths and exercise equipment and potentially, and of course the pickleball courts, et cetera. So, or splash park. I think we got too much going on in Conant Park right now. That's my personal opinion. Chris?
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, just I had reached out as part of the town's pollinator pledge. I had reached out to the Parks Department and couldn't go to their last meeting because we had a select board meeting at the same time, but I had passed on information to Mark Reed to share with the Parks Commission about the pollinator pledge and perhaps whether they would be interested in putting at least a small area just for pollinator plants, either at Conan or my thought was as you enter Labrie Field, where there's a little pond, temporary pond right as you enter Labrie Field on the left-hand side, whether that might be something that could be at least not mowed as frequently and, let some habitat grow in there that could be pollinator friendly. I did not hear back from Mark. I know it was brought up at the meeting. I don't know what their thoughts were about that. So that is one thing that was reached out on a separate level. Okay. And then just one other thing, I think the one on Pomeroy Meadow, personally, I've looked at it before. I think it's good in terms of its location, especially, but carving off a chunk of that, obviously. But one other one I'm going to say that I brought up, I had a chat with the postmaster, and that ugly strip right in front of the post office. I hate that thing. Anyway, it's just this bare, the post office sign and a couple of plants. And that's about it. It's not even really much lawn or grass there. So I said, do you, how much are you planning on putting out there for flowers? He said, oh, well, we would just, I have my landscape guy put out 3 or 4 things around Memorial Day. And I said, well, if there was a group of volunteers that felt like digging in the dirt and planting some pollinated flowers, would you mind? Would that be okay? And he said, as long as it didn't cost me anything, I'm fine. So
yeah.
I don't know. So it wouldn't be, a design garden like you're talking about, Charlie, but it might be a small plot of land, a small parcel, whatever you want to call it, that could, take a few pollinator plants. It's kind of similar to the pallet garden thing that the church is doing. I mean, we're getting more people interested in trying to, maybe occupy a median strip was one of the suggestions on the pollinator pledge, was to find medians in town where you can plant pollinator flowers in there. And so this is the only one really that came to my mind in front of the post office. So just to say that's just an alternate idea, but I think the one on Pomeroy Meadows, the more permanent type one for sure.
Yeah. Well, they have at Northampton, I noticed today, they have big planters. They must be about a yard wide, circular, and maybe in 4 feet. No, not 4 feet. 2.5, 3 feet deep. They put those all around the town for decorative purposes. And those also could be used in town to stress, again, the educational aspects of having pollinator plants in an appropriate environment for monarch butterflies and so on.
Some towns have, like a business will have a sign and say, this pot or this strip is supported by XYZ business, which is nice. I mean, that's all coordinated because you've already pointed out part of this is the financial piece, part of this is the actual beginning work, but then there's the maintenance piece. And yes, we can see keeping weeds down with some mulch, that's costly. We do know that Hampshire Regional High School has a service requirement for all students of 30 hours over the course of 6 years. My gosh, I should think it'd be 30 hours a year, but nonetheless, I checked that out. And so it's pretty minimal. And as I understand it, not all students actually achieve that, strangely. I can't quite understand that. But nonetheless, I've got the name of the assistant principal who coordinates that program if we wanted to see if there were any Southampton students who could be committed to helping on some of this, but they will need management. They will need support around it. They can't be. There are those things, and I spoke to Sue Koza from the Women's Club, and her point right off the bat is they're an aging group. They can't commit the work part of this. They can help with ideas and minimal planting, but they cannot do the maintenance. And the Mothers Club. Muriel Bollinger told me that, where the sign is, the Mothers Club sign right there at the Trading Post corner, they used to try to keep flowers there, but it was very disrespected. and, people trampled on it and threw their trash on it, et cetera. So they've kind of given up on that. I don't know if we could revive that, but Rini, were you going to add something on this?
Well, I just wanted to say that I think the site on Pomeroy Meadow would be it's such a nice meadow. I think it would be a great place to put the garden. I also think we should talk the owners of that parcel across from the cemetery of putting in a pollinated garden.
You mean a 3-acre one?
Why not? We're talking about putting in a 15-acre one.
All right. You plan to bring that up at town meeting, Rini? I don't know.
We might.
Okay, good idea. So we've also talked about town gardens, just having the opportunity for people to have a little, what do they call them in England? What is it called? There's a word for it. It's what they have in England when everybody get allotments. That's what they're called, allotments. Yeah. Anyway, so are we in agreement? Do we need a motion to say we support having the small first attempt pollinator garden?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's not the pollinator pledge. I think it's the monarch pledge that was signed, wasn't it? But nonetheless, we mix them all up. And we're
National Wildlife Federation pledge. Yeah, it's called the Monarch Pledge Survey.
Okay.
And again, the emphasis is education. And other sites in town, at the church, between the church and the town hall, there's a lot of open space there. And again, pushing the idea that there'll be pedestrians walking around there, that's another site. So, though I like Pomeroy Meadow, because I think eventually with another park grant, you could make it into a park, another sort of an urban area for that area of the town to be people can walk into.
Great.
So,
okay. Do I hear a motion to support having the first one be at the Pomeroy Meadow site?
So moved.
Second, anybody?
West, second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call. Diana?
Aye.
Charlie?
aye.
April?
Aye.
Rini?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Paula?
Aye.
Cindy? Aye. Unanimous. Okay, great.
And again, the next meeting, we'll have some sort of a design for us to look at and edit as you see fit. But I'll also commit to make sure you get a copy of this newer map that would be at least referenced by an email contact or a computer contact, website contact. I'll get that to you as, what else was I thinking about here? I'll get that out to you. And as this, do you want to send Cindy, because this nice summary that we got from Margaret?
Sure, I'll share that. She just came up with the recommended plans, and actually that's quite nice. And
it's very nice.
You know what, too, Charlie, we talked about Celebrate Southampton, which is the next thing on our agenda, which is, to have a presence at Celebrate Southampton. We could have some educational materials, including that thing from Margaret. Maybe she wants to modify it. We can give her the opportunity to modify that, plus the Barnes Aquifer information. And if, Rini, you come up with anything in terms of mosquito control and, mosquito-borne diseases, et cetera, that would be helpful just to have for educational purposes, consistent with our charge, educating the public. So, and we could share that. Remember, it's August 13th and 14th at Celebrate Southampton. I will not be there that weekend, so Charlie's going to chair that attempt, and we can talk about this a little more next time. Unless somebody wants to add anything, I still think this is a go from what I'm hearing from the committee. And there are probably more details coming out on that. Charlie, I also have gotten the email for the next meeting. The people that coordinate those meetings are Tammy Walunas and what's her name, Becky Nimmons from the Historical Commission. I'll let you know the date on that. I'll look up my email. In case it's a Zoom meeting.
Historical Society, Cindy.
Oops. You're absolutely right. Thanks for the reminder on that one. Historical Society, that's different than the Historical Commission. So is there any other new business anybody wants to bring up at this point?
No.
Any other business? Okay. Can I propose that we schedule the next meeting and consider it be at Conant Park?
Okay.
I will get a Zoom invitation just in case that can't happen. So let's see here. Does anyone, so we are talking Thursday. I think we wanted it to be the second Thursday. Is June 10th good for, well, that's 2 days before the town meeting. Yeah, that's not bad. Is that okay? June 10th?
That's
It's
okay with me.
available. The pavilion's available.
Say that again, Paula. What did you say?
The pavilion is available that night.
Can you access on there? If anyone, thank you. 6 o'clock. Diane, are you out of town that
I'll
night?
be out of town.
Okay. Janet, would you be able to take minutes that night? I know.
Sure.
Thank you so much. So 6 o'clock, and I'll get the backup Zoom in case it's, a storm or something. And if there's no other business, anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
May I just say one thing, Cindy? These corrections I need to make to the minutes, do you want me to make the corrections and then send them to you or send them to all the members? A lot of
I
times,
think you don't have to send them to all the, you can if you want, as a courtesy, you can send them to all the members.
just post
But
them.
we've approved them with the changes, so can you post them
Sure.
in Open Space Committee?
Yeah, but sometimes.
Anybody Just to make my mistake at Weston, Massachusetts, Master Gardeners Association,
Okay.
not Charter Gardeners Association,
I have that.
which I said earlier in the meeting.
Thank you.
So it's you got that, Janet?
I do. Yes, I do.
All right, cool, great, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah,
Sorry
you can
about
send them to all people in case they're saving them. I always just look on the websites.
Yeah, but I think in the past, sometimes you would like to send them to a few extra people, but we can just tell them to go on Maritime Government.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, great.
You have access to that, Janet? You can post them?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great.
Okay. Any other things? Nope. Okay. Adjourn. All in favor? Aye.
Aye, aye,
Thank you, everybody. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. Charlie, can you come tomorrow? Can you come to the thing at 1 o'clock?
I'll try,
I hope so. That'd be great to have you there. And anybody else who can, I know there's a lot of working people here, so.
Yeah, I'm working both tomorrow and Saturday, so I apologize.
Don't apologize. I get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cindy, I'll be there as soon as I can, then I'll also help clean up. This is Janet.
Thanks, Janet. Rini?
Cindy, I'll take you up on that Clearwater Woodland walk. Every time I've gone there, I've had to come back the same way because I'm not familiar enough with any kind of loop. So
Yep.
I'd love to take you up on that offer.
You know where I am.
I
And
will.
we need to also get a hold of the Beagle Club people. I got that on my to-do list. You and I were going to look at that, so.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
You're the busy one, Rini, so you let me know.
Everybody's pretty busy.
See you guys.
All right,
Bye.
see you later.
all right, take care.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Good
night.
night.